Imagine Manly Football Club tried to force Muslim players to wear a jersey which implied they have no religious objections to pig meat. And then when those Muslim players said, no, we actually do have religious objections and we're not going to wear that jersey, Manly Football Club called them intolerant, haters of everyone who likes and eats bacon. Have Muslim players ever refused to play with people who eat bacon, ham or pork? No. Have Christian players ever refused to include people who wear their unholy sexuality like an identity? No. But still, Peter Clown Volandis and the lying harlot media falsely calls them out for having a problem with inclusion and says they're not welcome in the profession because they're against inclusion. Well, as Muslims are with bacon, so Christians are with sexual behaviour outside the God design and definition of marriage. Trying to impose culturally irreconcilable beliefs on Christians is the only open display of intolerance and bigotry going on relentlessly and shamelessly in mainstream Australia. No player has a problem playing with adulterers, homosexuals, divorcees or philanderers. But asking Christians to celebrate, affirm and promote that behaviour is like asking a Muslim to promote the splendour and goodness of pig products. It's hateful intolerance. I'm Dave Pellowe and this is Pellowe Talk.
May all that you stand for and that we stand for be preserved under the providence of God for the happiness of mankind.
The trouble is caused by unthinking people who carelessly throw away ageless ideals as if they were old and outworn machinery.
But it is the values of individual liberty, equality before the law and the supremacy of people over the state to which we can always with confidence return as a powerful and uniting force.
Australia is not a secular country. It is a free country.
Well, welcome to the show. And as always, we're only going to keep the first 15 minutes of broadcast available on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're watching this now on YouTube and Facebook, thanks for tuning in. And at some stage, this is going to cut off in about 10 to 15 minutes. And we're going to ask you to head to the website, goodsource.news, to watch the rest of it. We're going to try and keep it censor-friendly for that long. But after that point, we're going to flick over to delete these videos off YouTube and Facebook and only keep that first introduction up so we can then talk freely. The full uncensored version of this video, this show, is on goodsource.news, thanks to embedded video through Rumble. Now, joining me on the show today, Pellowe Talk, we have Matthew Littlefield in the studio with me. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Fantastically, thank you. And we also have Alexandra Marshall, Good Source regular and the editor of Spectator Australia Online, The Flat White. Welcome, Ellie Melly.
Hello, nice to be here today.
And nice to have you gracing this panel of ruffians and men. Joining us and rounding out the ruffians is Bernie Finn from Victoria. Bernie, welcome to Pellowe Talk.
Great to be here once again, thank you.
Now, I wrote this week that the problem the mainstream media and Manly Football Club have with the Manly Seven comes from a fundamental ignorance. There's this concept that they don't get. And it could be willful ignorance, or it could just be the fact that so many people haven't been to Sunday school in today's culture. And while they're promoting inclusiveness and inclusion, that as itself is a concept, Matt, which fundamentally is actually mutually exclusive with an important concept to Christians, and that is the concept of holiness, where we actually are being taught by Jesus and Scripture to actually get rid of unholiness out of our lives, to get rid of sin. And so to ask us to include the ideas and behaviours which we're commanded not to do is actually an impossibility. What are your thoughts on I guess, on that, your comments?
Yeah, well, you could actually argue that inclusiveness in a lot of context is actually by definition the opposite of holiness, because to be holy literally means to be distinct. That's what it means to be holy.
Yeah.
It means to be separate, to be separate from the world, separate from particular behaviors. It literally means to remove certain behaviors from your life. Like, for example, sexual sin. There are many different sexual sins. Fornication, adultery, homosexuality, all sorts of these different things for Christians are sins, and we are to shun them.
Yeah.
And get them out of our life. And first and foremost, the Christian has to be focused on themselves and their own sin and dealing with sin in their own life. But one thing a Christian, and this is at the core of Christianity, one thing that a Christian cannot do, and this is just basic 101 Christianity, is support pride as a positive thing. Christianity is the religion of following the humble servant, Jesus Christ, who gave himself on behalf of all. In Christianity, the one who is the greatest is the one who is servant of all. And Jesus is the greatest because he gave his life to serve all of humanity. So to ask Christians to celebrate pride or to stand and wear the accoutrements of pride is to ask them to go against the basic fundamentals of their religion in a serious way. And I just want to respond to an objection which some people might be forming in their heads or might have heard right now. Well, what about gambling? What about drinking? You know, they wear these jerseys. In fact, you might see I'm actually wearing a football jersey today, although it has an insurance company on the front. I'm a Broncos fan. But you'll see these guys, they wear these jerseys and they have on these jerseys, you know, these betting companies. Broncos have had ones with betting companies in the past, or alcohol companies, VB, Forex, whatever, right? Well, drinking isn't a sin. What was Jesus's first miracle?
Turning water into wine.
Exactly. We are told that we will enjoy wine, the best wine. Isaiah 25, I think verses 6 and 7 says, we will enjoy the best wine in heaven. In fact, in Israel, there was this festival. They were commanded to buy whatever drinks they wanted, strong drink or fermented drink of their kind, and whatever food they wanted, and celebrate with their family and friends all the good things that God had given us. It was actually a yearly festival in Deuteronomy for the Israelites to celebrate. Yep. And when it comes to gambling, obviously there are destructive behaviors of gambling. And I myself personally don't think like things like the pokies or casinos or things like this. But gambling isn't actually a sin in the scripture. I mean, there are certain behaviors with your money which are a sin. But the Bible, God makes a bet with.
But we're never commanded not to.
Exactly. In fact, you cannot say gambling is a sin because gambling is just another word for risk.
Yeah. And
you have to be able to take risks. So but even if you were to consider these things wrong, say you're a Christian who believes that alcohol is wrong, or you believe gambling is wrong, right? Now that's up to.
Now I don't actually want people to misunderstand you here. You hate gambling, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And and the damage and so don't mistake this show for endorsing gambling or saying it's holy or something. It's just not expressly forbidden, like sex outside marriage is, and so there's a distinct difference. But it can, like my first bet ever was, and when I gamble, which is infrequently, it's purely for fun. I never risk what I can't lose, and I'm not, abusing the finances and resources God's given me. So in that sense, it's not a sin, but it certainly can become a sinful behavior because of various aspects. But not to get bogged down in that.
Well, there's another point here, which this is an important point. You cannot judge another person's conscience.
Right.
On this issue. For these men, you don't know them. I don't know them. None of us know them, really. Their coach knows them. Their family knows them. We don't know what's going on in their conscience with all the things they have to deal with in rugby league. Could you imagine the pressures put on these young men?
Yep.
And some of them are just kids, right?
Yep.
But then when it comes to issues of conscience, sometimes there are things in your life where you just have to draw a line and say, I can't go any further.
Yep.
Vishal Mangawadi, who's a famous theologian and writer, says, a man without a conscience is but a beast.
Yeah,
it's one of the distinctive natures of humanity is to have a conscience and to find things. We cannot go past certain lines, and that's an important thing to honor in our society. And if we don't honor it, we're going to enter a very terrible time and a very terrible place. And it's actually a very terrible time and place that we used to be in a long time ago, and we've come out of because of the concept of defending conscience, the concept of advocating for people's conscience. You do not know. I do not know what was going on inside those men's heads. What we do know publicly is they found a line they couldn't cross.
And not knowing, nobody should attempt to coerce their conscience.
Exactly.
Let me bring in Bernie here. Bernie, the football club going on. You're an AFL fan, maybe not so much into.
We're wearing the Tiger colours today. Thank you very much. Having beaten Brisbane yesterday at the MCG, very pleased indeed.
The Tigers getting a shout out there. Bernie, where obviously Christians do like including people, and we're not a holy club where lepers need not apply. It's actually a whole bunch of people who fall short and are seeking to be better.
Well, most of us are.
Where is the line where inclusiveness is actually a contradiction of what's unfair to actually ask of a Christian to do because a football club thinks they know how a Christian should behave?
Yeah, well, I have to say, I think watching what Manly have been up to this past week or so has been absolutely astounding. But when you force somebody to go against their conscience, you are in fact attacking them in a direct and a very, very vicious manner. Everybody has the right to conscience. Everybody has the right to freedom of religion, to freedom of expression, to those rights that we used to take for granted. But for those people who step in, as Mr. Volandiers, who must be a very, very strange man, is all I can say, as he did this week, saying that everybody can be inclusive except Christians, which is what he said. Effectively, that's what he said. Who say that sort of thing are quite nuts. And we've had just today here in Victoria. We've had Satan's little helper, Fiona Patton, announce that she's going to try and legislate to force religious hospitals, specifically Catholic ones, I assume, to commit abortion. So that's another forcing of an evil on people of faith, and that's just not on. But it's happening every day. It's happening every day, and we have to draw the line somewhere. The line is I hope we haven't already crossed it. In fact, but we certainly have to. I certainly hope we get to it very, very soon, because this is getting way beyond a joke. Yeah, indeed. What we have to do is say a big thanks to George Christensen, who's streaming this show on his Facebook page today as well. So a big hello to all George Christensen's fans. He sends his apologies. He'd like to be with us today, but his computer's actually in the midst of getting repairs. So I'm unable to join us, but make sure you watch his page again at the same time next week, and he'll be joining us on that panel again. But for everybody who's watching, please share the video, invite other people to join us. In just a few minutes, we will be ending the clip, and only this much will be available forever on Facebook and YouTube. And then we'll be asking you to watch the rest of the show on goodsource.news to make sure we can say things which the censors don't like, such as facts. Now, Alexandra Marshall, it seems like what's happening here, and we're going to talk about other ways the left is doing this, but it seems like what they're actually doing is legitimizing their own approved version of bigotry. Your thoughts on that?
Well, let me make 3 really quick points, and you can debate me on the merits of them after I finish. The first is, if it had been a genuine sponsorship and there was a little logo somewhere of a company that was LGBT positive, it would have been far harder for anybody to object to their contractual arrangements with rugby league. So that's one point I make. And it was not a sponsorship. It was a declaration outside of their contractual arrangements. Yeah. So that's one thing. The second is, it's not necessarily a religious thing. I mean, I'm not religious, and I wouldn't walk out wearing a pride jumper. I mean, almost all of my best friends are gay men, but I'm not down at the parade. I don't run around in glitter. It's not my thing. And you shouldn't be asking people to go against what were their general beliefs and make them affirm the sexual relationships of strangers. It's a bizarre request to make in the first place. But the main point is, sport is the great unifier, because it doesn't bring politics or race or religion into the field. The idea is that you come there, you play sport, and you come together around sport. So the idea that we're going to start bringing sport, we're going to start bringing commercialized virtue signaling into sport is what is destroying it. It is basically what you would call an unreasonable request on the players. So instead of having a go at the players making choices that you don't like, they should not have been asked to make the choice in the first place, because it's not relevant to the sport. And this is where we're getting really confused. I mean, it's all started from the fact that we had commercialization putting all these banners all over the players and all over the fields. And then those companies started to compete in the virtual Olympics. And they've brought this competitive idea of how to make more money off activist victim groups into sport. And it's not about the players. It's not about their beliefs. It's about these companies trying to market themselves on the television and in the advertising campaigns. And that is fundamentally wrong. And someone should pull them up and say, hey guys, it's about sport. If you want to be unifying, then leave all this stuff out. You're making sport a divisive entity, and that is just wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. For everybody's information as well, the live stream is not on goodsource.news today, and the live stream won't be interrupted on Facebook or YouTube. It will just be deleted when it's finished, and then we will replace it with the first 15-minute clip. So that's actually probably a great place to talk about that now, that if you're watching this clip, then it is actually going to end in just a second, and the video will be available for you to watch on goodsource.news. Please go and check that out right now. It's our way of being on YouTube and Facebook without supporting the business of YouTube and Facebook, because they don't support free speech and the free contest of ideas. So we need to make sure we minimize their revenue as much as possible. Head over to goodsource.news to watch that now, goodsource.news. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. You know what? We have to fight back against the censorship of big tech. Would you like to help? You can do that now by heading over to the website, goodsource.news. We're going to end the conversation here on this channel because we need to make sure that we're independent and not reliant on big tech. Head over to the website, goodsource.news right now for the rest of this great video.